is so very easy. My name is Laura, and there are so many ways we can communicate today. We have Messenger, Facebook, email addresses, and of course, good old-fashioned mail. It's nice to receive something in the mail, regardless if it's a card, a letter, but it's especially nice to receive custom-made postcards. We think of postcards mostly coming from a vacation spot, a location where we have visited, but there are a lot of other reasons that you can send postcards. You have postcards for occasions, as in Valentine's Day, Halloween, and Christmas. Birthday, feel better, just friendship cards, thank you cards, and generic cards. There are many different reasons that we can send a postcard. It can replace a greeting card. Because of them being so small, they're fun to make and they're quick to make. You can buy these special backs for postcards. It makes the postcards more polished and cleaned and finished looking, just like a regular postcard. You can get them from Zebra Greetings, and you can buy them in kits. So you would have a two-sided fusible foam that is the body of the postcard, the pre-printed fabric back, and it also comes with a mailing sleeve. So the only thing you're going to need to do is the fronts. And there are so many different ideas that you can do for the front of cards. You can use the fabric from the projects that you're working on, leftover ribbons, buttons, just about anything can go on the top of these postcards. And yes, they can go in the mail. Because they will not go through their regular machines, you have to bring them in and have them hand canceled. You would be able to put the postage stamp on it and they manually process this. And you can mail it just like this. Or once it's been hand stamped, you can put it in plastic sleeves to protect it. A few things to keep in mind when you do want to mail these. If there's no embellishments on them, you can send them just like a regular postcard. They will get a little bit dirty, but they will go through the post. Things that do have embellishments on them can get caught in the process of getting the mail delivered. That's where the clear sleeves come in handy. You can, of course, just put them inside a bubble envelope, and it will protect them and keep them clean. But then it's not like getting a postcard. It's more like getting letter mail. However you mail them, they are a lot of fun to receive, and they're just as much fun to make. To start with, we're going to have this 6-inch by 7-inch piece of two-sided fusible foam. The fusible makes it easy. We won't have to worry about gluing anything on. And we'll need the back. The first thing would be making the front of the postcard. If you're going to make more than one, it's good if you make yourself a template. So I've made the template a 1/4 inch bigger than what I'm going to want. So this is 6.5 inches by 7.5 inches. And I've put it on some clear template plastic. I've put an X so I know where the center is. Having this is going to just make it easier for me to lay out my design and to make sure that the design is going to fit inside the postcard. The first thing is going to be to decide on a base fabric. I'll make sure that my base fabric is somewhere around that size. I don't want it too much bigger, but I definitely don't want it smaller. Here's an example of some that have started with just a base fabric. I felt the fabric was fun enough. I didn't really need to do anything except add a couple of embellishments. This one cried for a thumbs up. The base fabric was the orange. Then I've cut out fabric to make my rubber ducks in my tub. This was just the base fabric with the ribbon embellishments over top. Another base fabric, and these all just started with one flat piece of fabric. If you're going to start with just that base of fabric, you can iron that base of fabric right on top of that foam. Now you're going to be able to work by building up. If you're going to use a design where you're going to have it pieced, you need to piece it first. The gray and the black was pieced first and then put on. I have 4 strips of fabric sewn together. That started off at the base. Then I added the embellishments. A quilt window has been pieced. 2 long strips have been pieced. And I've made a block which has been pieced. Once I've pieced them, then I will put them on. So you can either start with a solid piece or a pieced back. From there, we can embellish it. The back of the postcard says a grateful heart. So I'm going to work around that theme. I'm going to do something that can either be a friendship card, a thank you card, a thinking of you card. I'm going to start with some buttons, a piece of ribbon tied right in a corner, and 3 squares of fabric. There are many ways that we can put this right onto the base. You can use a fabric glue. You can also use a double-sided adhesive. The adhesive is stuck on one side of the paper. You can take the glue side, which is bumpy, and you can feel that there's glue on it. You'll put the glue side down on top of the fabric, iron it out, and then cut the shape you want. Always have your fabric a little bit bigger so that you do not get any glue on your iron. Once you've ironed it, you can let it cool. When you turn it over, you'll be able to peel off the paper. So we've turned the fabric into a sticker. So I've done that too. 2 red squares. And for the center square, I've just used the alphabet from my machine and have put "You're the Best" with a little frame. Pinking shears are really nice to use on this type of a project because it does give it a decorative edge. Once I had the embroidery done, I put that fusible web down, ironed it, trimmed it down to the size I wanted, and peeled off the paper. So all 3 of these have that fusible web on the back. I like to lay out my design first. 3 buttons in a corner. My reds are in the corner, and they're going to cover the end of that ribbon for me. And then my personal message is going to go into the center. Once I have an arrangement I like, I pull out that template plastic again and I lay it over top. I make sure that everything is inside of that black line. My center mark will make sure that I have it centered. Then from there, I'm going to put the layers on, starting on the bottom and going up. And in this case, the first thing I want to do is put that ribbon in. Now I can remove these. I'm going to put a little bead of glue underneath this ribbon just to hold it down while I stitch it. I'm using Fabric Fuse. It is a permanent fabric glue and it dries clear. I could just put a little heat on it. That is now going to be permanent. And stitch a couple of lines to anchor that ribbon down. So I will be quilting and anchoring at the same time. And there are the rows of stitching that hold that ribbon down. The next bottom layer are going to be these squares. I lay them where I think I'm going to need them, do a double check with my template. Now I can just press these on. I'm going to top stitch this down. After each row, I do make sure that I clean up all of the back. The next has already got the adhesive on it. I can center it and iron that piece on. Most of the fusibles are permanent, so you really don't have to stitch over top of them if you don't want to. I just like the look of the stitching. It makes the card look quilted. I'm going to do a row of stitching right around the next piece. My last step is going to be embellishing it with the buttons or beads, anything that is very dimensional. And I do it before the back is on so that I can stitch right through the fabric. I won't have to worry about my stitching on the back. If you're not stitching any with the sewing machine, you can glue on the buttons. My front is done and my back is cleared up of all the little threads. This side is also adhesive, so I will be able to just put my backing over top and press. Just hold it down for a couple of seconds and then pick and move the iron up. I press once from the back and I'll press from the front. That makes sure everything is stuck down. The next will be just finishing this off. You can treat it like a quilt and put a binding on it all the way around. It looks good from both sides. But most times I will just set the machine to a little zigzag and zigzag all the way around. So I'll need to just square this up a little bit. I don't want any fabric hanging onto the outside, so I'll go in just a smidgen and trim up these lines. It's really not even a measurement, it's just enough to clean up the ends. Something to pay attention to is to make sure that the back of the postcard is in the right direction. I'm going to put white on the machine, and I'm going to do a little row of zigzag all the way around. So my needle's going to come off the fabric, onto the fabric, off, on, all the way. That's going to clean up that edge. When that's been stitched, I just take time and trim any little threads that have been poking out. Now I'll give it one more press from both sides just to set in those stitches. I now have one complete postcard. We have the spot for the address and the personal message. You can do a lot of these in advance and not have them embroidered. For example, this card, I will write a message on the top before I send it. And I would recommend using a marker that is designed for fabric. Other markers, if you put them on fabric, they bleed. The ones that are designed for fabric will give you a nice clean line. So in here I could put Happy Mother's Day, Happy Valentine's Day, you hold the key to my heart. So I will have this ready for when I need it. The back has a nice back to it, so I'll be able to use it for many different occasions. I now have a nice collection, so when I need a card, I have one. And if you're going to send a card, you can send a plate stand so they can display their cards. If you send these to the same person, after a while, they're going to have a nice collection of little collectible postcards. They're fun to receive and they're fun to make. I'll put a link in the description to Zebra Greetings so you can check out the beautiful postcard backs. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.